Imagine standing in the middle of a busy town square when, out of nowhere, a police officer suddenly slaps a man across the face in front of everyone. The crowd gasps, children stop playing, and silence fills the air. But just when it seems like the man will either fight back or walk away, he calmly looks the officer in the eye and says 5 words that shock the entire town. "I'm your new chief. What happens next will leave you speechless. Stay with me, because this story is about respect, justice, and a lesson in true leadership. You'll never forget, the town square was alive with its usual rhythm. Vendors shouted out their prices. Fresh oranges, 2 for $1. While the smell of roasted peanuts and fried dough filled the air. Children weaved between the grown-ups, laughing and chasing each other, while tired workers hurried through with coffee cups in hand. It was just another ordinary morning. At the edge of the square, however, stood Officer Richard Miller. He wasn't just any policeman. People in the community knew him well. Some feared him, some avoided him, and very few respected him. His reputation was carved out of years of arrogance, power plays, and an attitude that showed he believed the badge on his chest made him untouchable. That morning, Richard noticed something, or rather, someone that made his blood boil. A tall black man, sharp in a dark suit, walked confidently through the crowd. He didn't shuffle like someone afraid of being stopped, and he didn't lower his gaze. Instead, he carried himself with dignity, commanding attention without saying a word. To Richard, that confidence looked like defiance. He stepped in front of the man, blocking his path. "Where do you think you're going?" he barked loudly, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. The man remained calm, his eyes steady, saying nothing. Richard didn't like silence. He wanted obedience, and in a split-second decision fueled by arrogance, he did the unthinkable. He slapped the man across the face, the sharp crack echoing through the square. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Vendors stopped mid-sentence. Children froze. Some people covered their mouths in shock. Everyone waited for the man's response. Would he fight back? Would he walk away? Or would this moment escalate into something far worse? Nobody expected the words that were about to leave his mouth. The man didn't stumble backward. He didn't clench his fists. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he calmly adjusted his jacket, brushed the dust from his sleeve, and looked Officer Richard directly in the eye. His composure alone was enough to unsettle the officer. Then, in a voice steady and unshaken, the man spoke 5 simple words that would change everything. "I'm your new chief." The square fell into absolute silence. It was as if time had stopped. The crowd's gasps turned into murmurs of disbelief. Officer Richard's arrogant smirk vanished. His hand, still raised in the air, slowly dropped to his side. His face turned pale. What did you say?" he stuttered, his voice cracking. The man took a deliberate step forward, his eyes never leaving Richard's. "My name is Marcus Brown. As of this morning, I have been officially appointed as chief of police for this district. And just moments ago, in front of dozens of witnesses, you assaulted your superior officer." The crowd erupted into whispers, some pulling out their phones to record, others pointing fingers at the stunned officer. The scene had flipped completely. What Richard thought would be a show of power had turned into his worst nightmare. Marcus didn't raise his tone, yet his presence commanded respect. "You see, Officer Miller," he continued, "a badge doesn't give you the right to humiliate others. It gives you the responsibility to protect them. And right now, you've shown this community exactly why change was needed in this department." The words hit harder than the slap itself. The officer, once confident and feared, now stood frozen, stripped of his authority. The crowd, who had seen years of abuse from men like him, began to applaud, not because of the slap, but because finally, justice had spoken back. Marcus didn't need to yell. His calm but firm words carried more weight than any act of aggression could. "Today," he told the crowd, "you witnessed not just a slap, but the culture that has existed here for far too long. Officers abusing power, citizens living in fear. That stops now." The applause grew louder, echoing through the square. For the first time in years, people felt hope. Mothers nodded in approval, young men smiled, and elders whispered, "Finally, someone who understands." Meanwhile, Officer Richard shifted uncomfortably. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he looked around, realizing the crowd was no longer on his side. His authority, once unquestioned, had evaporated in seconds. Marcus turned to him again. Respect is not demanded by violence. Respect is earned by integrity, by service, and by fairness. And if you cannot uphold those values, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. The officer's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. The crowd watched closely, waiting for Marcus to deliver the final blow, not with his hands, but with his leadership. Marcus then addressed everyone. This town has suffered from officers who forgot their oath. But as your new chief, I promise you every single one of us will be held accountable. No exceptions. People clapped and cheered. Some even had tears in their eyes. The moment wasn't just about a new police. Chief, it was about a community, reclaiming its dignity. Richard, standing humiliated, realized that in one act of arrogance, he had become the perfect example of everything wrong in the system. And Marcus had turned that into the first lesson of his leadership. Later that afternoon, Marcus called for a mandatory meeting at the police station. Word of the morning's incident had already spread like wildfire. Every officer in the department knew about it. The station buzzed with nervous chatter as men and women in uniform filled the briefing room. When Marcus entered, silence swept the room. He didn't slam doors, didn't shout orders. He simply walked to the front, straightened his notes, and looked each officer in the eye. Leadership, he began, is not about fear. It's not about who can shout the loudest or hit the hardest. Leadership is about responsibility. It's about respect, and it's about protecting the very people who trust us to keep them safe. Every word landed with precision. Officers who had once rolled their eyes at similar speeches now listened. Carefully, because this wasn't theory. They had just witnessed their new chief practice what he preached. Then Marcus called Officer Richard to the front. The room tensed. Everyone wondered if Marcus would fire him on the spot. Richard walked slowly, his head down, his usual swagger gone. Marcus looked at him and said, "You disrespected me today, but more importantly, you disrespected the badge. You disrespected this department, and you disrespected the people you swore to serve." Richard swallowed hard, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. "But," Marcus continued, "I will not answer disrespect with hatred. I will answer with accountability." He then announced Richard's immediate suspension, pending investigation. The room was silent, officers shocked that finally, even one of their own was not above the rules. For the first time in years, the department saw what real justice looked like. News of the incident spread far beyond the town square. Videos recorded by bystanders went viral online. Headlines read, "New Black Police. Chief stands tall after being slapped by officer and humility lesson in small. Town Police Department." The slap became a symbol, but not of violence. Instead, it became a reminder of change, accountability, and dignity. People in the community walked with more confidence, knowing they finally had a leader who cared for them, not just his own power. Marcus became a local hero, not because he fought back with force, but because he chose wisdom over anger. He had turned what could have been just another story of abuse into a turning point for justice. At the police department, officers felt the shift. They began treating citizens differently, listening more, showing patience and respecting the people they once intimidated. Slowly but surely, trust began to rebuild. As for Richard, his suspension sent a clear message: no one is untouchable. Some officers who had once mimicked his behavior now thought twice before acting. They knew Marcus wasn't just speaking words. He was serious about change. Standing in his office one evening, Marcus reflected on the day. He knew challenges lay ahead. Change would not come overnight, but he also knew that leadership wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about guiding people through them. And the 5 words he spoke that morning, "I am your new chief," were more than a revelation. They became a promise that leadership built on respect, humility, and accountability would always be stronger than leadership built on fear. The town had entered a new chapter, and this time, it was one of justice, dignity, and hope. If you found this story inspiring and powerful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more stories like this, stories that shock, inspire, and remind us of the power of respect and justice. Until next time, keep believing in truth, fairness, and the courage to stand tall.